All right, let's talk about something that gets every JavaScript developer at some point, whether you're just starting out or you've been coding for years. We're diving into the JavaScript void to really understand the difference between return, undefined, null, and that really annoying not defined error.
And you know what? Let's just kick things off with a real brain teaser, one you might actually get in a tech interview. Look at this code. Super simple, right? It's just an empty function called test. Now, what happens when we try to console log the result of calling that function? Take a second. What do you think that's going to log? Got an answer? Okay, let's see if you're right. Hey, if you're scratching your head right now, don't worry. You are definitely not alone. It's kind of tricky, right? The answer isn't obvious unless you know a few core things about how JavaScript works. So let's break this puzzle down, piece by piece. So first, let's start with this idea, things in our code that exist, but they're empty. This is the world of undefined and null. They sound super similar, but they mean very different things.
First up, undefined. And honestly, the name kind of gives you a big clue. It's basically JavaScript's way of saying, hey, I see you made this variable, but you haven't put anything in it yet. It's the default state of being empty. Here's a super simple example. We create a variable, name, but that's it. We don't give it a value. So when we ask the console, hey, what's in name? JavaScript just kind of shrugs and says, undefined. And here's the really important part. You don't do this. This is JavaScript's automatic response. The moment you declare a variable and just walk away without assigning it a value, the engine swoops in and slaps an undefined label on it as a placeholder. Okay, so if undefined is automatic, null is the exact opposite. It is never automatic. Null is something you, the programmer, do on purpose. It's like you're explicitly saying this variable has no value, and I mean it. Think about it like this. It's a super common scenario. Maybe you've got a variable that's going to hold, I don't know, the currently selected user. But when the page first loads, nobody's been selected yet. So what do you put there? Null is perfect. It's a clear signal that says, yep, a user can go here, but for right now, it's empty on purpose.
So let's really nail this down. Undefined is the system saying, you didn't give me a value for this. But null is you saying, I am intentionally making this have no value. See the difference? One's passive, the other's active. And trust me, when you're debugging, knowing this difference is a lifesaver. Seeing undefined might be a bug, something you forgot. Null is usually just a deliberate state in your program.
Okay, so we've talked about variables that exist but are empty. But what if the variable doesn't even exist in the first place? What happens when you try to use something that was never even created? Well, that's a whole different ballgame. And this is a huge distinction. Not defined is not a value. It's not like undefined or null. It is a full-blown, stop the presses, red alert error. It's a reference error, to be specific. This is JavaScript throwing its hands up and saying, whoa, hold on. I have no idea what you're talking about. I've never even heard of this variable.
Look at this code. We're trying to console.log age, but we never declared age. We never said let age or const age or anything. The result, your program crashes right there and then with that exact error. Reference error, age is not defined.
So why does it do that? Well, it's pretty simple, really. The program gets the instruction to find age. It looks through all the variables it knows about, and it's not there. It was never created. It doesn't exist in memory, so it has no choice but to stop and tell you there's a problem. And that's actually a good thing. It keeps you from using variables that don't exist. All right, let's switch gears a bit. We've been talking about variables, but what about functions? How does a function actually, give you something back after it's done its job? That's where the return keyword comes into play. You can think of return as the function's delivery service. It does all its work inside, and then return is how it hands the final package, the result, back to whatever called it. So here we have a simple add function. It takes two numbers, adds them up. That return A plus B line is the magic. It sends that calculated sum back out, and we can catch it in our result variable. Without return, that value would just disappear inside the function forever.
Okay, this is super important. As soon as a function hits a return statement, it's done. It stops immediately. Any code after that return, it's like it doesn't even exist. It's unreachable code. This is actually a really powerful trick for writing clean code and exiting functions early if you need to.
Phew. Okay, that was a lot of theory. So let's pull it all together. I'm going to give you the ultimate cheat sheet, including a super simple analogy that's going to make all of this finally click.
So here it is in a nice, neat table. Return gives you a value back from a function. Undefined means a variable exists, but it's empty. Null means you made it empty. And not defined, well, that's an error because the variable doesn't exist at all. This is great for a quick reference, but I think we can do better. Let's make this more visual.
Let's try the box analogy. It's simple, but it really works. Imagine every variable is a cardboard box. For undefined, you've got the box, you've even written a label on it, but there's nothing inside. It's just an empty box waiting for something.
Now, what about null? Okay, you still have the box, but this time you've opened it up and put a little piece of paper inside that says, this box is intentionally empty. You've made a deliberate choice. And finally, not defined. This one's easy. You're wandering around the warehouse looking for a box that was never made. It's not just empty, it literally does not exist.
Okay, deep breath. With our box analogy and everything we've covered, let's go all the way back to the beginning, that interview question. We call this empty function and we log whatever it spits out. What's the final answer?
And the answer is undefined. If you got that, give yourself a pat on the back. Seriously, that's awesome. If you didn't, don't sweat it, because now you're about to understand exactly why. So here's the final piece of the puzzle. We call the test function. It runs perfectly fine. But look closely. There is no return statement inside of it. And this is the golden rule. In JavaScript, if a function finishes running and it didn't explicitly return something, it will automatically, by default, return undefined. That's it. That's the whole trick. And just like that, you've navigated the JavaScript void. These concepts won't trip you up anymore. So, I'm curious, what other weird JavaScript quirks or tricky concepts has you gotten stuck on in the past? Thanks for joining me on this one, and keep exploring.